Welcome to another exciting chapter of sci-fi adventure, where romance, suspense, and humor collide in a world beyond your wildest imagination. If you're ready to dive into the unknown with human resilience and alien encounters, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss out on the adventure. The journey begins now, and trust me, this one will keep you hooked till the very end. Planet Virela is not just any world. It's a place unlike anything humanity has ever encountered. The sky above is a rich shade of purple, with multiple suns hanging in the distance, casting an otherworldly glow across the landscape. The air is thick with the scent of exotic flora, and the ground below is covered in bioluminescent plants that pulse softly, creating a magical glow as the wind sweeps across the terrain. Floating crystal cities shimmer in the distance, defying gravity and adding to the mystery of this alien world. The planet's natural phenomena are unlike anything Marcus has seen before. Waterfalls float mid-air, cascading in streams of liquid that glimmer with iridescent colors. The suns, there are two of them, emit different hues, bathing everything in shades of blue, red, and gold. The vast, uncharted lands of Virela are ancient, rich with secrets yet to be uncovered. This is not just a planet, it's a mystery waiting to be solved, and Marcus is here to unravel it. Marcus Valen is the human diplomat sent on this mission. A man in his late 20s, Marcus is of medium build, with short dark hair and intense focused eyes. He carries himself with a calm confidence, though underneath it all, there's a sense of unease. After all, he's here to make first contact with an alien species, a task so delicate it could alter the course of history. He's been chosen for his intelligence, emotional resilience, and his ability to read situations. His mission seems straightforward enough: peace talks with the alien race of Virela, and hopefully an alliance between their people. But Marcus can't shake the feeling that his arrival here is anything but simple. His training prepared him for a lot, but nothing can prepare him for the reality of this alien world and its inhabitants. As Marcus steps off the spaceship, his heart races with a mix of excitement and trepidation. He's about to be the first human to make contact with this alien civilization. The moment he sets foot on Virela, it feels like the planet itself is watching him. Every breath, every step is filled with both wonder and an unspoken pressure. The environment is both beautiful and intimidating, and he realizes just how far out of his depth he really is. Looking around, Marcus takes in the alien landscape. The floating cities, the glowing flora, and the vast, barren stretches of land all call to him, urging him to understand them. But there is no clear path, no guide to help him make sense of it all. The thrill of the unknown mixes with the weight of his mission, making him unsure of how to begin. And then he sees her. A figure emerges from the mist, walking with a grace that seems almost unnatural. She is a striking figure, a calm yet powerful alien woman with lavender skin that seems to glow under the twin suns. She exudes both strength and beauty, with an air of authority in her every movement. Her eyes, bright and sharp, lock onto Marcus as she approaches, the intensity of her gaze sending a shiver down his spine. She stands before him, the granddaughter of the Grand Matriarch, Tsera. Her presence is commanding, yet there's a softness in her demeanor. Her skin, glowing under the suns, contrasts with the harsh environment around them, like a symbol of peace amidst a world of chaos. Their eyes meet. There's no immediate words, but the unspoken connection between them is undeniable. Marcus feels his heart race, and for a split second time seems to freeze. This is the moment. The first encounter with an alien species, and Marcus knows that nothing will ever be the same again. Before Marcus can speak, a sudden rumble shakes the air around him. The ground beneath his feet vibrates, and the sound of a hovering craft fills the air. He turns just in time to see the craft descending from the sky. It lands smoothly, and from it steps a figure even more imposing than Tsera. The Grand Matriarch emerges, draped in ceremonial robes, her eyes cold yet filled with an undeniable authority. Tsera steps aside, and her grandfather looks at Marcus, the weight of his gaze heavy and calculating. "Welcome to Virela, human," the Grand Matriarch says, his voice deep and resonant. "You have much to prove." The tension in the air thickens, and Marcus knows that this first encounter is only the beginning of something much larger and much more complicated than he ever imagined. Marcus stood, feeling the weight of the moment as the Grand Matriarch emerged from the hovering craft. He was an imposing figure, much taller than Marcus, with dark, iridescent skin that shimmered in the light of Virela's twin suns. His eyes were sharp, calculating, reflecting an intelligence honed over centuries of leadership. His presence was enough to command respect without a single word, and Marcus could sense the authority that radiated from him. Tsera, her granddaughter, stood slightly behind him, watching the exchange with a subtle smile, her posture more relaxed as though this was all part of a familiar routine. Though she was the Grand Matriarch's advisor, it was clear she was less involved in the formal leadership, but remained close, offering both curiosity and amusement as she observed the human. Her playful energy was a stark contrast to the more rigid and intimidating figure of the Grand Matriarch. The Grand Matriarch's gaze settled on Marcus, his eyes narrowing as he assessed the human standing before him. His voice, deep and rich, filled the air with a hint of suspicion. "Human," he began, the word heavy with both curiosity and doubt. "You've come from a world so far, yet you're here to represent your people. What do you truly seek on Virela?" Marcus took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain calm. He had rehearsed for this moment, knowing that first impressions were crucial. "I seek peace," he said, his voice steady, though his mind was racing. "An alliance between our worlds. Mutual respect, exchange, understanding." The Grand Matriarch didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied Marcus for a long moment, as though weighing the human's every word. His expression remained unreadable, but Marcus could feel the tension in the air. The power dynamics were shifting. Tsera's warm and curious gaze softened the moment, but the Grand Matriarch's cold assessment reminded him of the challenge ahead. As the silence stretched, Tsera finally spoke up, her voice light and teasing, breaking the tension. "You humans are strange creatures, aren't you?" She stepped forward, her lavender skin glowing under the twin suns. "You can't survive under our suns, but you still want to make an alliance? How fascinating." Marcus blinked, unsure whether she was mocking him or genuinely curious. "We, don't need the sun as much as you think. Earth has technology, heat suits, protective shields. We manage." Tsera tilted her head, intrigued by his response. "You don't need our light?" she asked, amusement dancing in her eyes. "How do you survive without the sun's warmth?" Marcus chuckled nervously. "It's more complicated than that. Earth is different from Virela, but we've learned to adapt." The playful teasing in Tsera's voice made Marcus feel more at ease, yet the exchange also reminded him of how alien these beings were, despite their appearance. It was easy to forget that his human understanding had little in common with the customs of this ancient species. "You think we're weak because we need to rely on technology?" Marcus asked, trying to understand the direction of the conversation. Tsera smiled, her expression soft but knowing. "Not weak, just different." She added with a mischievous glint in her eye, "But don't worry, we don't need to survive. On the sun, like your species does, we are much stronger than that." Marcus couldn't help but laugh. Tsera's playful banter brought some relief, even as the Grand Matriarch's presence loomed over them, casting a shadow of seriousness. The difference in attitudes toward humanity became clear. Tsera seemed open to learning about Earth's ways, while her grandfather was skeptical, always questioning their true intentions. As the conversation moved forward, the mood shifted. The Grand Matriarch's serious tone re-emerged, and the playful exchanges turned to more intellectual topics. Tsera, her tone still light but with an edge of curiosity, asked, "How do humans form relationships? Is it through trust? Or is it more something else?" Marcus, a little caught off guard by the shift, took a moment to respond. "I think it's about understanding one another," he said, looking into Tsera's glowing amber eyes. "We don't just want to survive next, do each other. We want to connect, to find a common ground." Tsera nodded thoughtfully, her gaze never leaving his face. "You believe in choices. You choose who you trust and who you bond with. Interesting." She tilted her head, as though the human perspective was somehow foreign, but fascinating. "Perhaps your choices will shape your future here, Marcus." The shift in tone was unmistakable. Tsera's playful curiosity began to blend with something deeper, a genuine interest in understanding Marcus and his world. As she spoke, Marcus couldn't ignore the connection that seemed to be growing between them. There was something in the way she looked at him, something more than just the formal exchange of diplomacy. Tsera's quiet smile and the soft glint in her eyes hinted at an unspoken attraction, a growing chemistry that was difficult to ignore. The warmth between them seemed to contrast with the icy nature of her grandfather's gaze. Marcus felt himself drawn to Tsera, not just as an alien leader, but as a woman who was beginning to unravel his thoughts and emotions. Just as the conversation reached this emotional turning point, the Grand Matriarch's voice broke the moment. His tone had turned more serious, and his next words sent a chill through Marcus's spine. "You are not the only one with power here, human," the Grand Matriarch said, his voice echoing. "The Council watches you. They are not as forgiving." "As my granddaughter," Marcus swallowed, the weight of the words settling on his shoulders. He had hoped for a peaceful first encounter, but now the reality of alien politics and the true stakes of his mission were coming into focus. A low hum suddenly filled the air, and Marcus turned to see a ship descending from the sky. It was sleek, metallic, and unlike anything he had ever seen. As it landed, Tsera's expression turned serious, the playful glint in her eyes replaced by an unreadable look. The Council was here. The sound of the ship's engines echoed through the air as the Grand Matriarch's expression hardened. "It seems our discussions are no longer private," he muttered. "The Council will have much to say about your presence, Marcus Valen." As the days passed, Marcus found himself spending more and more time with Tsera. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. Her intelligence, her curiosity, and the way she carried herself left him both intrigued and, at times, overwhelmed. Every moment spent in her presence only deepened his admiration for her. And soon, what began as a professional relationship evolved into something more personal. Their conversations started to shift from formal discussions of peace and alliance to genuine curiosity about each other's worlds. Tsera seemed fascinated by humanity, particularly by human emotion and the concept of connection. She would often ask him questions about Earth, about love, about how humans form relationships, questions that made Marcus think deeply about his own existence. "I've read about your kind," Tsera said one evening as they sat beneath a vast, bioluminescent tree near the edge of the city. "You speak of connection through emotion. But what if your feelings could be so deeply entangled with another person that you can no longer distinguish between where one ends and the other begins?" Marcus paused, staring at her with a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. "Well, that's actually how some people feel about love. You know, when someone becomes a huge part of your life. It's almost as if they become a part of you." Tsera's eyes gleamed with interest. "So, connection is more than just sharing physical space. It's shared existence. I believe that's a powerful idea." There was something in the way she spoke, a softness behind her words that made Marcus feel both drawn to her and slightly uneasy. Despite the intellectual connection they were building, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that there was more at play here, something deeper, perhaps, more dangerous. As the days passed, their bond continued to grow. Tsera would share insights into the alien culture, offering Marcus glimpses into a world he could scarcely comprehend. "We don't marry, Marcus," she explained one evening as they walked through the streets of Virela, their footsteps echoing. "In the quiet city. In our culture we share everything. It's not about ownership, but about balance." Marcus was fascinated, though a bit confused. "So, no possession at all?" he asked, trying to wrap his mind around the concept. "But what about family? How does that work if there's no one to claim you or vice versa?" Tsera smiled softly, the corners of her lips lifting ever so slightly. "We are all connected, Marcus, but not through ownership. We are balanced, connected by our shared existence, not because we belong to one another. We don't own love, we experience it." Marcus stared at her, processing her words. It was unlike anything he had ever heard. On Earth, relationships were often about possession, commitment, and belonging. The idea of simply sharing without the need for ownership was both freeing and a little unnerving. It sounded beautiful in theory, but it left him wondering about the deeper implications for human relationships. The conversation turned to lighter topics as Tsera's sense of humor began to shine through. As she continued to explain her culture, Marcus found himself laughing more than he expected. One moment, he accidentally misunderstood a cultural practice, and Tsera's laughter filled the air. "So, let me get this straight," Marcus said, scratching his head. "You're saying that when someone in your species bonds with another, it's like, hey, we're sharing everything, no questions asked, and there's no ownership." Tsera's laugh was soft and musical, and for a moment, Marcus felt more at ease than he had since arriving on Virela. "Exactly, but your species seems to view possession differently. You say things like, 'I love you,' but own them. You claim them. But that's not the way it works for us. We don't claim anything, we just share." The way Tsera explained it made it sound simple, almost poetic, but Marcus still felt like he was missing something crucial. It wasn't just the language that was foreign, it was the philosophy behind it. How did it feel to not possess someone, to not claim them as your own? He didn't know, and it made him wonder how deep the cultural divide truly was. As their bond deepened, Marcus began to notice the subtle shifts in Tsera's behavior. There was an undeniable attraction between them, though neither had explicitly acknowledged it. The more they spoke, the more vulnerable they became with each other. Tsera would open up about her people's philosophies, while Marcus shared stories about Earth, about the wars, the peace, the hope. But just when he thought he had a grasp on the situation, tension built in the air. One afternoon, while walking together in a bioluminescent garden, Marcus overheard a conversation between Haldor, the Grand Matriarch, and several other council members. He couldn't hear everything, but the tone was unmistakably serious. Haldor's voice, low and gravelly, carried across the garden. "The human is a danger," Haldor growled, his words clipped and filled with distrust. "We've worked too long to let this alliance crumble over one man. We cannot allow him to interfere with our society." Marcus froze in his tracks, his heart pounding in his chest. Danger? What did that mean? Was he truly a threat? Was his presence destabilizing this world? He turned to Tsera, his face pale. "What does this mean?" he asked quietly. Tsera's gaze hardened, and she quickly moved closer, her voice barely a whisper. "The Council fears what you represent, Marcus. They fear that your presence here might disrupt the balance we've worked so hard to maintain. You're not just a diplomat, you're more than that." Tsera pulled Marcus aside, her face serious and concerned. She placed a hand on his arm, her touch gentle but firm. "You're not just here to make peace, Marcus," she said, her voice low with urgency. "The stakes are much higher than you think. You don't understand the full scope of what's happening. Be careful." Her words lingered in the air like a warning, and Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine. Was he truly at the heart of something much larger than he could control? Was he caught in a political game that had far-reaching consequences, beyond his diplomatic mission and beyond his understanding? The tension between them grew, and Marcus knew deep down that things were about to take a dangerous turn. The days that followed only deepened the bond between Marcus and Tsera. They spent more time together, often in quiet corners of the floating, crystal cities, engaging in conversations about their worlds. With each passing day, their connection became irresistible, something undeniable that neither could ignore. But as their relationship grew, so did the tension. The Council of Virela had already made their disapproval of Marcus's presence clear, but there were deeper forces at play that neither Marcus nor Tsera had fully understood. One evening, after a particularly intimate conversation, Tsera led Marcus to a secluded garden, hidden away from the prying eyes of the world. The bioluminescent plants illuminated their surroundings, casting soft, glowing light over the scene. The air was thick with the hum of alien insects and the scent of exotic flowers. There, in the quiet solitude, Tsera and Marcus shared a private moment. Marcus looked at her, his heart racing as he spoke the words that had been on his mind for days. "Tsera, I don't know what this is, but I can't ignore it anymore. I feel something between us, something real." Tsera's gaze softened, and she stepped closer, her amber eyes glowing under the moonlight. "I feel it too, Marcus. There is a connection between us, something neither of us expected, but something powerful." Their lips met in a moment of pure, unspoken understanding. It was a kiss that held the promise of something deeper, something that transcended the boundaries of their worlds. But the moment was not without consequences. As their bodies separated, Tsera's expression shifted, becoming more somber. "I've been thinking about what this means, Marcus," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I cannot ignore my responsibilities. The Council expects much from me." Marcus's heart sank. He had sensed the conflict in her, but hearing it aloud made it more real. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice tinged with fear and uncertainty. Tsera took a deep breath, looking away as though gathering the courage to speak. "I've been chosen to marry someone within my species," she revealed, her voice heavy with reluctance. "It's part of a cultural ritual, a tradition that my people have upheld for centuries. It's not just about love, Marcus. It's about securing our future, our political alliances." Marcus blinked, the weight of her words hitting him hard. You have to marry someone else?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Tsera nodded, her expression pained. "Yes, and the Council will never approve of what's happening between us. They see my duty to the people, not my feelings for you. I am bound by tradition, Marcus, and I fear I may be torn between my heart and my people's expectations." The revelation hit Marcus like a ton of bricks. The tension between their cultures, between duty and desire, had just become real. The political stakes were rising, and so were the emotional ones. He could see now how deeply entrenched Tsera was in the society she was born into, and how much her people depended on her. But he also felt the personal betrayal of that duty, the knowledge that what they were building together was now forbidden. In the days that followed, Marcus found himself caught in the middle of an alien conflict he hadn't anticipated. He overheard more whispered conversations between the Council and the matriarch, their voices full of concern about the growing human presence on Virela. Some members of the council were adamantly against Marcus's presence, fearing it would disrupt the balance of their society. Others, however, saw the potential for an alliance with humanity, but the personal conflict within the council was just as complicated. Some supported Tsera and Marcus's bond, seeing it as an opportunity for the future, while others viewed it as a dangerous political gamble that could threaten the stability of the Virelan people. Marcus, stuck in the middle, began to feel the pressure. The romantic tension between him and Tsera was undeniable, but it was a dangerous game. Was he simply a pawn in their political maneuvering? Could their relationship survive the weight of their respective societies' expectations? One evening, after a particularly tense council meeting, Marcus found himself alone with Tsera in a quiet corner of the spaceship. Her usual calm demeanor was gone. She was vulnerable, her eyes heavy with doubt. "I don't know if I can do this anymore, Marcus," she whispered, her voice breaking the silence. "I don't know how much longer I can balance the demands of my people with my feelings for you." Marcus moved closer, his heart aching as he placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone. We're in this together." Tsera looked at him, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "I want to believe that, I do. But what about my duty? What about everything I've been trained for?" Her vulnerability was clear, and for the first time, Marcus saw just how much pressure she was under. Her commitment to her people, her family, and her future weighed heavily on her, but so did her growing feelings for him. In that moment, Marcus realized how deeply he had become entangled in the alien politics. His feelings for Tsera were real, and he was willing to fight for her, for them, but there were too many unknowns. The stakes were higher than either of them could have anticipated. Later that evening, Tsera invited Marcus to a private event, something she called an alien rite of passage, a ceremony that held deep cultural significance. The event was supposed to be a bonding moment for their people, but Marcus felt something more beneath the surface. Was this an opportunity to show their unity, or was it a trap? Was the council using Tsera and Marcus as pawns in a larger political game? As they prepared to leave, a ship appeared on the horizon, descending rapidly toward the landing platform. Tsera's expression hardened, her body tensing in response. The arrival of the ship felt ominous, a new danger on the horizon. "Marcus, be careful," Tsera whispered urgently, her hand brushing his arm. "There's much more at play here than you realize." Marcus's heart raced. Was he about to lose everything he had fought for? Was his bond with Tsera truly as dangerous as they feared? The tension that had been building over the last few days finally reached its breaking point. Marcus stood in the grand hall of Virela's council chamber, surrounded by the powerful alien leaders who had been debating his presence for what felt like an eternity. The Grand Matriarch towered over him, his dark, iridescent skin glowing under the harsh light of the chamber. The council was divided, but one faction had taken the reins, those who believed that humanity could not be trusted. The council's final decision was now clear. They were going to force Marcus and Tsera into a public marriage agreement as a way to solidify the alliance between the two species. This was a move that would unite their worlds politically, but it came at a personal cost, one that Marcus was not prepared to pay. "You will marry her," the Grand Matriarch announced, his voice thunderous and final. "It is the only way to secure the future of this alliance. The Council demands it." Marcus's heart sank as the room seemed to close in around him. Tsera stood next to him, her face a mask of stoic resignation, though her eyes betrayed the turmoil she felt. The alien council watched them both, their expressions cold, calculating. Some of them were eager for this union, believing it would bring stability. Others, though, seemed to hold unspoken reservations. Tsera's gaze met Marcus's, and in that moment, he knew he had to make a choice. This wasn't just about politics or survival, it was about her, and it was about what they both stood for. As the weight of the council's decision pressed down on him, Marcus took a deep breath, standing tall despite the intensity of the situation. He had always known that this mission would be difficult, but nothing could have prepared him for this. To marry Tsera, to be forced into a bond with someone he had come to care for, yet knowing it was more about alliances than true love. "I can't do this," Marcus said, his voice clear and strong, cutting through the heavy silence of the room. "I can't marry her just to please the council. I came here to build something real, something that goes beyond politics. This isn't just about securing alliances. It's about creating a future where our people trust each other, not manipulate each other." Tsera's eyes widened, her lips trembling as though she were about to say something, but she remained silent, knowing that Marcus was speaking from his heart. The room was still as the council members exchanged glances, their skepticism and surprise evident. In a moment that felt suspended in time, Marcus stepped forward. "I will not play your game. I came here to find peace, to forge something that matters, not to be used as a pawn in your political machinations." The room erupted. A few council members whispered among themselves. Others glared at Marcus with open disdain. But there was something in his eyes, something that had shifted. He was no longer just a diplomat. He was protecting something much more precious. His bond with Tsera and the future they could create, free from the constraints of politics and power. "I will protect her," Marcus continued, his voice strong and unwavering. "I will protect her, because I believe in what we have, in what we could become together. If that means defying your council, then so be it." The council erupted in chaos, with factions shouting and arguing. Some of the council members voiced their support for Marcus's stance, while others accused him of being a threat to the peace and future of Virela. The debate was growing louder by the second, and Marcus could feel the walls closing in. Just as the tension reached its peak, the atmosphere in the room shifted. A new danger had entered the fray. The doors to the chamber suddenly burst open, and in stepped a group of heavily armed figures. Their faces were concealed behind dark helmets, and their uniforms were distinct from the Virelan guards. "You are all fools," one of them growled, his voice mechanical and chilling. "The council has forgotten its duty. There will be no peace here, no alliance. The Virelan people will decide their fate, not you." The room went silent as the figure stepped forward. It was clear now, a rival faction had arrived, challenging the very foundation of the council's authority. They were not just opposing Marcus's presence on the planet, they were opposing the council itself. The situation had just escalated from a diplomatic impasse to an all-out internal conflict. "These traitors must be stopped," the Grand Matriarch hissed, his eyes narrowing as he turned to face the intruders. "You dare to challenge the council's authority. You will regret this." The rival faction's leader, clad in dark armor, motioned for his troops to spread out, the air thick with hostility. The stakes were higher than ever. Marcus and Tsera had been thrust into the heart of an alien civil war, and they could no longer hide behind diplomacy. This was no longer just a fight for peace, it was a fight for survival. As the tension between the two factions grew, Marcus found himself surrounded by armed soldiers, unsure of who to trust. The future of Virela and the fragile connection he had forged with Tsera was hanging by a thread. Could he escape this without losing everything he had worked for? Would he be forced to pick a side in this alien civil war? The rival faction's leader turned toward Marcus and Tsera, his voice cold and threatening. "You think you're safe here, human? You think you've won their trust? The real power is about to show you what it means to defy the council." As Marcus and Tsera exchanged glances, the reality of their situation hit them hard. The romantic tension between them had grown into something much larger, and now it was a question of survival. The escape they needed to make would determine everything. Would they be able to survive this new threat, or would the Council's decisions seal their fate? The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain. Marcus was no longer just a diplomat. He was now the protector of something far more important than the alliance, the woman he had come to love and the future they could build together. The room seemed to grow colder as the rival faction's soldiers advanced, and Marcus knew the battle for their survival was only just beginning. The council chamber was silent as Marcus stood tall, his heart pounding with anticipation. The once hostile room now felt like a space of uneasy calm. After days of political conflict and uncertainty, Marcus had finally managed to secure a fragile understanding between the divided factions. The rival faction that had once threatened the alliance had been repelled, but not without sacrifice. The Grand Matriarch and his supporters had been forced to acknowledge the threat that Marcus's diplomatic stance posed, not only to their political structure, but to their people's future. Through bold negotiations, Marcus had convinced the Council that humanity's presence on Virela wasn't a threat. It wasn't an invasion or a conquest. It was a partnership, an opportunity to expand both cultures, learn from each other, and share the richness of their respective histories. Tsera stood by his side, her expression conflicted but proud. She had been caught between her loyalty to the Council and her growing affection for Marcus. But in the end, she realized that this moment wasn't just about politics. It was about forging a new future together, one that was shared, one that didn't rely on the old traditions of their species. The Grand Matriarch, while still reserved and calculating, nodded his approval. "Your words have merit, human," he said, his voice less cold now but still firm. "Perhaps we have been too cautious. The future is uncertain, but your resolve has shown us that we may not be so different after all." There was a murmur of agreement from some of the council members. It was clear that the fragile peace Marcus had fought for was beginning to take hold, but the path ahead would not be easy. The future of Virela would not rest solely on Marcus and Tsera's bond, but it was a symbol, a first step towards mutual understanding and cooperation. The following day, the ceremony was set to take place, an event that would forever change the course of history for both humans and Virelans. It wasn't a traditional human wedding, but a ritualistic bonding that symbolized the unity of the two cultures. Marcus had never imagined that he would be participating in something so alien, yet so significant. The ceremony was held in one of Virela's grandest temples, a place of ancient significance to the Virelans. The walls were adorned with glowing symbols and intricate carvings that told the story of their civilization. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the soft sound of alien music echoed through the chambers. Tsera stood before him, her lavender skin glowing in the soft light of the chamber. She wore a ceremonial robe intricately woven with silken threads that shimmered like liquid. Her hair was loosely tied, cascading down her back, and her eyes held an expression of quiet resolve. It wasn't just a ritual for her people, it was a moment of change, a moment where she would make a choice that could define her life and the future of her people. Marcus, standing beside her, had never felt more out of place and yet more certain of his place in the universe. He wore a simple yet elegant tunic, designed for the occasion, but still it felt like he was stepping into an entirely new world. The ceremony was intimate, yet grand in scale. It wasn't a marriage in the human sense. There were no vows exchanged, no promises of ownership or possession. Instead, it was a ritual of sharing, of joining forces with another being, not as an act of submission, but as a mutual understanding and trust. As Tsera and Marcus stood before the council, they placed their hands on a glowing stone altar. The energy from the stone surged up through their bodies, connecting them in a bond that transcended words, transcended cultures. For a brief moment, Marcus felt as though he could hear the heartbeat of the planet itself, as though Virela was watching them, judging them, and in some way, accepting them. The council observed in silence, and Marcus couldn't help but notice the subtle shifts in their demeanor. The hard, cold faces of the council members were softened just a little. The tension in the room seemed to dissipate, if only for a moment. Later that night, Marcus and Tsera found themselves alone in the quiet observation deck of the spaceship, gazing at the stars outside. The stars on Virela were different from Earth's, more vivid, more colorful, and full of stories. Marcus couldn't help but think of how far he had come since he first set foot on this alien planet, unsure of what the future held. Tsera sat beside him, her head resting on his shoulder. "I never thought I would be here," she said softly, her voice carrying a mixture of wonder and uncertainty. "Never thought I would be standing at the edge of a new world with so much at stake. But now, with you, I see the possibility of something more." Marcus turned to look at her, his heart swelling. "I never thought I'd be here either," he said, his voice quiet. "I came here to make peace. But I didn't expect to find this, a bond that goes deeper than diplomacy, a bond that is real." They sat in silence for a long while, watching the stars above, both lost in thought about the future. It wasn't just about their relationship anymore, it was about the future of their worlds, the future of peace, and the choices they would have to make together. As the quiet moment passed, Marcus noticed something strange, a faint pulse of energy coming from the depths of space. A signal, faint but unmistakable, was coming from beyond the stars. Tsera noticed it too, her eyes narrowing as she stood up. "Do you feel that?" she asked, her voice suddenly tense. Marcus nodded, standing beside her. "What is it?" Tsera's face was serious as she looked out the window at the stars. "It's a signal, not from our people and not from Earth. Something else is out there." The scene fades as the distant stars blink and the hum of the spaceship's engines fills the silence. The mystery of what lies beyond the stars still lingers, and the adventure is far from over. The future of both species, their alliances, and their shared future will depend on the choices they make, and what happens next could change everything. The unknown force watching them, the story is far from finished.